In the previous lesson, we saw how easy it is to make an AJAX call to make that request to a website and return back some data from that website. So if you actually go over to the URL, you can see that it's got that same JSON formatted data that we're able to pull back. And the interesting thing about jQuery is that we know that with XHR objects, this would be a string format, so we'd have to parse it into JSON. But jQuery is actually smart enough to know that if it detects that it's JSON, then it outputs it in a JSON format. You also have different options here that you can specify the data type. So that's another option here that we can say data type, and we can specify that it's JSON. And really, it's not going to make much of a difference here because it already figured out that it's a JSON. We could also do something like text. So we refresh and we return it back as a text object, but that doesn't really help us because then, of course, we do want JSON and then we'd have to parse it through into a JSON format. So we'll just leave it as JSON. And there's also, you can also specify the method if you want. So you see that done as well, that you see the method and then something like get. And then just don't forget to comma separate out these values because it is object. So there we go. So we're able to return back that information, and now we're able to make use of that information once we've returned it out into our function. There's one other thing that I also did want to add. So there's a number of different methods that you can actually chain together here, and they've got some of them listed here on the jQuery website. So we could take a quick look on the website, and I'll show you some of the different ones that are available. So we've got our ability to send our AJAX calls. If we want to go, we also have some options for what type of value we're returning. So we saw that we could default it. It would, if it picks up that it's a JSON, it would default to JSON. Otherwise, it goes as text. But we can get XML, we can get HTML, we can get script JSON. We've also got JSON+AJAX+API, so that's another option there. We've got text, and then we can pick up errors. Similar again, that basic call where we do AJAX, we do done. And it's as easy as that to pull that information back and make use of it. So there is also fail. So that's another one that we did want to talk about, because sometimes if your request, it comes out as fail, you want to do something that in case it does fail, maybe you want to log an error or you want to do something if that doesn't actually go through. So there is an option for that within JavaScript. So you can simply output into the console. So, we need to have a function, of course. So function. And then within here, you could console log out, or you could run a separate function. So we'll just type in error for now. So there are options here. You could do even more with the function. So let's say, for instance, we get the URL wrong. Refresh, click. We see that we get that error in the console there that the name isn't resolved, but we still run through all of the different methods here that were chained together. So it still runs fail, even though it didn't pick up the URL, so that this way we're able to catch any types of errors or any issues that might have happened with our request. And if we're not able to find the URL, then we can also do something else, allow the user to do something else in case it fails. So we don't get stuck with just not running and nothing happens and the user's left confused. So that's another option there that you can do. So let's change that URL back. And now let's output something that into our HTML. And let's refresh, make sure it's still working. And you can see all of this information that we're outputting. So let's output the title and the body into our output area. And this is going to be really easy because we can simply just do something with that JavaScript element of output. So we can grab it using jQuery, and we can update the HTML, and then within here we can output some information. So let's do an H1 for the title, or maybe do H2 for the title, and then concatenate it in there, and then closing quotes of H2, and then also let's add a paragraph. So this is still within that HTML, and then here's where we're going to put that paragraph information, and then close that back off. Usually the way that I like to do it this way, and then I'll add in the data information after. So we know that we were outputting data, and this is being returned back as a JavaScript object. So we've got data title, and we also have data.body. So that should get the title and the body. So let's refresh and try that out. So there we go. So now when we click it, we're getting that information back from our JSON data. And we can update the post value, because this is just simply returning some JSON data. So we know that the posts can different and they can be various different types of posts. So we're just pulling back the data that's being returned back from our API. So I want you to try this out for yourself. And next lesson, I'm going to show you some shorthand methods that also are available within jQuery, but they just make, again, that writing of this code a whole lot easier, and we can do this stuff literally with just in that one statement. So that is coming up in the next lesson, but do try this out for yourself. And if you're having some trouble connecting to your API from your local machine, make sure that you're running it as a local server. There's a number of different options to set that up. Brackets as well is able to launch it into an IP address. So you're running off of the HTTP protocol instead of the file protocol, because sometimes that can get caught up. And also, if you're having some problems just locally in general, you can go over to a website like CodePen and you can type your jQuery in here. And next lesson, I'm going to do a quick run through of CodePen and how you can use CodePen to practice writing jQuery. So that's coming up in the next lesson.